Yo, what is going on, guys? Ryan Greeby or Obsolete Zeo here. Felidar Guardian, Oath of Nissa, Leyline of Abundance. We're kind of scuffed here. We don't really have any effects, any editing, other than these nice, beautiful sounds. We're talking about some hot takes in Pioneer and Magic as a whole recently, and Wizards with their weekly ban announcements, and what this does to the format now, and maybe should you be panic buying, panic selling? What do we think of the format? Where does it go from here? I'm here to break that down, but just real quick, if you guys enjoy this video, you can follow me on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram at Obsolete Zeo, Obsolete XEO, and on Facebook at Ryan Greeby. So I'm going to be talking about this ban and how it impacts us as Magic players, how it impacts the format currently, and let's get into it. So to start, I am also a byproduct of this decision. Rip me. Just recently bought these. Yeah. These beautiful $4 Voracious Hydras. Feels bad. This decision by Wizards, in my opinion, is a shock to me, actually. So they initially announced the format, and they initially announced it as a primarily Magic Online format, where they wanted to test that out, get the water set before the new year in January. And with the release of new sets in the spring, primarily the Theros set, I think this would be a really good jumpstart for those sets as well. And spoiler alert, actually, you know what, we'll get to that in a minute. But basically, there are future sets coming out where this format is going to be riding on those sets' coattails. With a smaller card pool than Modern, new sets coming out benefit more from any kind of major set releases in the coming future. So this format, from them as a brand point of view, makes a lot of sense from a marketing sense, from just getting people playing the game. There was a lot of frustration, a lot of staleness with Standard, and even though it's very popular, even Modern to some extent, because with Modern, it's always been considered a format where people can play what they want, right? But you can't always excel with those decks that you want to play. Often they're tier 2, tier 3, they're pet decks, they're elves. I wish that was S tier, but we'll get there one day. Anyway, Modern as a whole was kind of on the downward trend. Standard as a whole was just flatline, like there's no beat there, there's no heartbeat. The depth of Standard right now is very much on the hinge of a few cards, and I think we all know what I'm referring to there. And we see that a little bit with Pioneer, where it seems as though from this first week, some cards were getting a big boost than others, and some decks were performing higher than expected. We see with this ban, their reasoning is Magic the Gathering Online results, and we see that mono green Devotion decks using Leyline of Abundance, and to some extent Oath of Nissa, although I think that card overlaps in other decks where we see Felidar Guardian a little bit more. Power out Planeswalkers very quickly in almost all of these scenarios, actually. Even with Mono Green Devotion, the biggest key was Nissa, powering out her as soon as possible, or just busted strategies in general. And then with Felidar Guardian, obviously you have a combo there, and Oath of Nissa helps facilitate that. I actually thought that if we were going to see changes, we'd see, and I think this was kind of popular for people too, Saheeli Rai, and as well Nykthos. But spoiler alert now, spoiler alert, there have been spoilers from the new Theros set coming out in the spring, and apparently there's a return of Constellation and Devotion. So with Devotion, keeping Nykthos in the format allows for some potential uses there with the new cards, combining with previous Devotion of the past. that allows some creativity there. With keeping Nykthos in the format and instead banning Leyline of Abundance, I think that allows for not broken interactions where you just go off with Leyline of Abundance powered by Nykthos, but rather Nykthos is now an enabler in some not necessarily fringe, but like niche strategies that I think will be popular with a lot of players and will help push cards from the new set when that comes out. Spoiler alert, kind of ended now. I don't know if I'm going to do a timestamp. You're going to watch it anyway. You probably have already seen the spoilers. It is what it is. I want to briefly talk about some quick reactions and then get into my thoughts and like what to do going forward in the near future and long term. So, anonymous post on Facebook. They scheduled events and then let people schedule them, so I sort of buy in or don't play. The only thing I spent good money on was Mox Amber, and I'm pretty sure, based on these bans, they will nix them soon enough. I just didn't and don't understand the aggression they're displaying, and that's incredibly frustrating to me. I basically have to wait until next year to play, and I hate it. I'm probably just being salty for no reason. I was really excited and didn't expect this. And before I give my hot takes on that, another comment, I'm not a fan of this ban at all. I get that Cat mono green was powerful and busted, but it was far from dominant. I'm mad I bought into this format now because there's zero chance any deck that does something more powerful than other decks is going to get to stay for more than a week. I have zero incentive to buy cards for decks. I'm sitting here looking at my mail today and half of it is useless now. It's not expensive, but I have zero desire to rebuy on another deck just to see them crack down on whatever the next deck is that seems dumb. It's okay to have powerful decks in the format. Just because there's a combo deck doesn't mean you can't beat it. Next week, Kethis is going to shit all over everyone and they'll ban Mox. Then the week after that, something else will show up in Force and they'll ban something from that. Also, I've seen very positive responses. Sorry for that little tirade there. I wanted to give kind of an overarching, instant hot take feedback response to this announcement. And I think we're seeing a wide spectrum of responses, and aptly so. My personal take. I think I was shocked by this announcement, primarily because even though they announced weekly bans, and how they were going to be aggressive, and how they were going to really keep the format in check, this was seen as an emergency response because stores, and they're using stores as a scapegoat here. Thanks, Wizards. I appreciate that. As a store employee myself, they're using stores as a scapegoat to say that this was initially an online primary format, and now, because stores were so keen to adopt it and players seem to have a really good response to this format, okay, now we need to keep the format in check because now people are going to be playing it in paper and it's going to have real tangible interactions with real secondary market money. And even though they don't directly address that, I think they want to keep the format in check for something that doesn't become degenerate like Modern, because a lot of the negative response of Modern, at least presently and in the last 6 months or so, has been those very degenerate decks, those combo-driven decks. So I wasn't shocked by them making changes to the format, and even relatively quickly. I'm more shocked by it happening immediately, like week 1. We just had a series of NRG Pioneer event coupled with online PTQ and like a couple weekly daily 5-0s, you know, like a couple badges of that. Like, we don't have a lot of information, and even though you already have writers speculating that certain decks are busted, this card needs to be banned, like this is unhealthy for the format, like people are always going to spin their agenda in whatever way. I think this is still very early to make decisive decisions about the future of the format when you only have a week's worth of data. Now, maybe they do testing behind the scenes, but it's Wizards. I don't think even with the test play group that they've done much in the way of other than looking at online results for the most part. I tend to, with things like this, not give Wizards the benefit of the doubt. And I also, you know, with them putting the blame somewhat on stores as a scapegoat to say, like, we're making these heavy hit, hard hitting ban changes because of stores adopting the format so quickly, come on, Wizards. That's a little sneaky, man. Like, you knew, unless you're that naive, which honestly, like Wizards could be, you knew that this format was going to be very popular. You knew that it was going to get adopted immediately. You saw Modern, like that, just on fire, right? So they knew that they were going to get a good response for this, and this would help propel them into the next year with new sets coming out and keep Magic fresh, right, for the foreseeable future. There's a lot of anxiety and turmoil with Standard. Obviously, there's been some disdain and frustration with Modern, and Legacy's kind of just in the back burner. Honestly, I think the format that they keep in check the most with close eyes is Vintage, but that's for another story. My take, I don't think anybody should have any quick, immediate, knee-jerk reactions with financial or deck building usage. I think if you haven't gotten into the format yet and you're looking at this and you're like, I really don't want to, that's okay. I think this format in the long run, even with some early on weekly bans, will be really, really good. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really enjoyable, and it's going to be to the benefit of the player that has played in a few standards here and there, has a card pool built up, has cards just laying around. They're like, I want to use these some way, but they're not good enough for Modern. And this format is a great outlet for that, right? And I think for those players who haven't yet fully committed to a deck, maybe just give it some time, right? Give it a little bit of time and just chill. And that's unfortunate because a lot of people want to jump in immediately, right? And get hook, line, and sinkered. These next few weeks and the next month or two are going to be really telling as we lead into the new year. Because they've announced that like once the new year happens and you have now large-scale events, and actually SCG Con, the Invitational, will be a really big tell sign of that prior to the new year. And that's going to be a lot of information for Wizards. But besides that event, I would argue that hold off. As the weeks progress, we'll get more data. As the weeks progress, we'll see how they react to these decks and the overperforming decks, right? With this information and data for Wizards comes better decisions for the consumer. You can safely place your bets into something in a more secure way rather than see you later, it's been a week. So that's my initial like don't do anything take. Now, in terms of bans of what I predict, because the reason why I thought this was a shocker wasn't because, you know, they weren't going to be aggressive to the format. I knew from the get-go with them making a hard stance like this was going to be something certain. But what shocked me was that it happened so quickly, a week after. Like, they didn't even give us a little bit of breathing room or time to adjust. So that was a shock for me. So I full-heartedly expect that even in the coming couple weeks, they probably will hit something else. Because if there's another big PTQ or another big event or some really large sample size for them on the 5.0 list or what have you, where Kethis is doing well, where Mox Amber, where Embry, where Hardened Scales, where whatever. And I don't want to throw out these decks as like, caution, don't get into Pioneer. I don't want to do that. I want to be like a cautionary tale, like to just back off. I want consumers to have confidence in this format, and I think you should, right? I have boxes. They're kind of tough to tell, but boxes of like somewhat organized stuff here. I have more elsewhere, but like all of that stuff, despite, you know, just investing into these things here, I mean, this card is still a format all-star, multi-format all-star, fucking vintage all-star, legacy all-star, right? This card will still see standard play and will still be EDH casual fun stuff. Same thing with this card. And honestly, maybe even same thing with this card. In my opinion, don't fully buy into something without all the information. I think for consumers in general, it's always good to have as much information available to you to make the best decisions and best purchases that you can. But I also wouldn't panic and say, I'm not going to get into Pioneer. I'm not even touching it. Wizards is messing something up. The end of Magic, like, whole back up, you know? Like, don't have that take either. Like, I'm still very confident in all of my cards from Pioneer that have skyrocketed in price. And you should be the people out there too that's benefiting from that. It's just like Modern back in the day. If you've already owned these cards, you're doing well. And even if they ban some things here or there, you're still going to do pretty well. And if you haven't gotten to the format, let's say you're maybe a standard only player, maybe you play Arena, because there's a lot of players like that out there, and they're like, what do I do for paper? Maybe there's people who are sticking to specific Modern decks, like I talked earlier about pet decks or tier 2, tier 3 strategies. Maybe there's people like that out there. For those people, I think you just give it some breathing room. But I think eventually the format will come around to being a very solid, balanced format, especially if they're going to be so aggressive on these bans. That means that there will be very little in the way of degeneracy going on. And so hopefully that leads to a very healthy format. And I would argue that some people like some degenerate stuff here or there because a lot of the times it can't always be dominant. Storm in Modern, pretty good. Pros, you play it at the Pro Tour. It's a great deck, but sometimes it's not as well positioned. Sometimes it's easy to hit out. Sometimes there's good tools to combat it. So it's not always an S tier strategy. And I guess at the end of the day, wrapping everything up, this video is kind of dragged on a little bit, but I hope you guys have enjoyed. Just don't panic, chill, have fun, play your decks. Right now is the perfect time to play whatever deck you want in Pioneer and kind of just experiment and chill and do what you want to do. And I encourage that, especially if you have the cards lying around to do so. And don't get too upset by this, man. Like, this format could be really, really, really good. And I think it already is really, really, really good. And even if this card was in the format, and this card was in the format, and it's somewhere, I don't know, I have cards everywhere, whatever. Even if these cards are in the format right now, going into this next week, there's ways that you can combat that, right? The whole key to competitive Magic, or just Magic in general, is finding ways to beat certain strategies and always adapting, always deck building, always overcoming, being creative, right? And I think with the current state of online Magic and that real quick, like, instant gratification mentality, like, everybody is so quick to just, yeah, let's ban it all, dude. Let's just ban it all. Let's ban Thoughtseize. Let's ban Hardened Scales, right? Let's ban Saheeli. Let's ban Teferi. Let's ban Oko. And just enjoy it, right? At the end of the day, you're having fun playing something that is a really cool hobby because you get something out of it at the end. You get enjoyment along the way. You meet people, and you're having a good time. And things like this, right, is super minor. And just don't dwell on that. And rather have a positive take on it. Enjoy it. I have like 5, 6, 7 decks that are kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. And with this ban announcement, even though I bought these cards, freaking Voracious Hydra, I still have so many options at my disposal. Like, I don't know what I want to play on this Thursday or this Friday at F&M. I don't know what I want to do. And that's like a cool thing to have. So, yeah, let's wrap it up. That's my take on this. That's my freaking hot take. Ryan Greeby, Obsolete Zeo on all social media. Super scuffed video here. I have no editing. The audio could be trash. The video quality could be terrible. I don't really know. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this sparks creative and constructive conversation. I hope people have a good take from this, and rather, instead of like divulging into negative internet spew spam bullshit, like, I don't even care that I'm cursing. Like, just don't do it, man. Like, come on, leave that for me. Let me be the toxic one. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't have your whole night consumed by internet trash. That's what I enjoy. So, thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Hope this was a cool video. I don't know. I'm trying something new, so have a good one.